AITA for kicking my boyfriend out during a pandemic and calling his mom to come get him. I, 30F, let my BF Jesse, 39 meters, come live with me and my niece/nephew, who I have custody of, a year before this pandemic mess. So he moved in around the start of 2019, but we'd been dating since 2016. I own a modest 3-bedroom home, left to me by my mom, that I have to pay all utilities/property tax/etc. on. No mortgage thank God, but everything else I pay. His lease was coming to an end soon and we decided he'd come live with us for a year to see if we'd work out as a married couple. I discussed it with my niece and nephew and they were alright with it, since it was a test. Things went well for most of 2019, he paid for part of the utilities and helped around the house. But long story short, he lost his job at the end of 2019 and didn't try looking for a new one. He said he was, but I don't see how he had time between his day-long gaming sessions. He lived off his savings until they dried up, stopped helping out around the house and just turned into a couch potato. But the absolute worst thing was when he'd flip out when he was losing one of his games. He'd rage and scream. He knows I can't handle men screaming, like at all. I talked to him and told him he couldn't act that way in my house. He got all teary and apologized and did better. For a week. Then he was right back to his shit behavior. It freaked my niece and nephew out. There's a reason I have custody of them. And around August I finally snapped at him and said if he didn't get his crap together he was gone. He cried and said he was trying and things were so hard right now, and he basically guilted me into feeling bad for him. I told him he had 1 month to get himself together, clean himself up, stop laying on the couch all day, do stuff around the house, look for any kind of work, etc., or he was out. He sniffled and said okay. Nothing changed. He took a shower but kept up the gaming, the rage quitting, not looking for a job, everything. Well, 1 month after that I told him I was done and he needed to get out that day. He turned on the waterworks again, but I was done, so I called his mom to come get him. She came around, she could hear him sobbing in the background I'm sure, and it was a huge fucking scene. Turns out he'd been lying about having a job. She shamed him into getting up and packing everything of his and leaving with her. I took his key and he gave me the most hate-filled glare on his way out. He told our friends and they said I was heartless for kicking him out mid-pandemic, and that I embarrassed him by calling his mom like that. I thought I handled it maturely, but they're all saying I'm the asshole and handled it badly. So AITA, edit. I just sent a detailed message about everything that happened to the group Discord all our mutual friends chat on. I didn't spare a single detail and even told them if they didn't believe me to call his mom. She knows what's up. I'll see what they have to say. Edit 2. Well, one of our mutual friends heard my side of the breakup. Yes, we are broken up now, and went to go talk to him and she grilled him over text about what he said/what I said, and he eventually broke down and admitted he'd lied and had been for a while. She in turn posted the screenshots of him admitting he'd lied to try and make me look like the bad guy. Our friends aren't amused, and all of them apologized to me, both in the chat and via call, for jumping the gun without hearing my side first. I've forgiven them, but let them know having them treat me like that without even seeing what I had to say first hurt a lot, since I tried for months to get Jesse to get help but he refuses. Things are better on the friend front, but Jesse keeps trying to private message me and I haven't looked at any of them. Honestly, I just don't want to talk to him for a while. I'm very tired and want to just enjoy my now clean and quiet house. And to those concerned, my niece and nephew are both doing much better. They're both not cooped up in their rooms anymore and are doing their Zoom classes in the kitchen without worry of embarrassment. NTA. Don't feel bad about your behavior for a second. He's an immature baby. I can't believe he's almost 40. He sure hasn't been acting like it lately. He was always fun and young at heart before we moved in together, but he wasn't so unbearably immature. NTA. He should have respected you and your home more. Pandemic or not, behaving this way, especially in front of children, is a no-go. If he'd have contributed more, or just made a conscious effort, then I'd have been happy to have him stay till he got back on his feet. NTA. Thank goodness you got rid of him op. Don't take him back. He can go live with his mommy permanently if he wants to act like that, and I hope he still isn't your BF. No, I think we're exes by this point. I don't know what they'd rather you do, kick him out on the street? NTA, you were kinder than you needed to be. I didn't want him out on the street, and like I know he doesn't get along with his parents. I figure dealing with his disappointed mom and dad would be way better than living in an alley somewhere. AITA for uninviting my family from my wedding because they want me to share it with my sister. To preface this, we only got engaged about 10 weeks ago and have plans for November 2021, but if there's still issues at the time we'll postpone. My sister, Rosie, and I have always had a complex relationship, but my bigger problem is her fiancé, Mick, who I detest with my entire being. Mick is like a caricature of the phrase toxic masculinity. One time my daughter, age 7, painted my son, age 5, and my fiancé's nails, and Mick called my son and fiancé sissies because they had nail polish on. He's also hit on me in the past and slut-shamed me. So yeah, hate him. Fiancé also hates him. My parents wanted to invite all about 40 people to our wedding. Our guest list only 20 guests, so the agreement we came to was they pay for 2/3 yards of the wedding as they had 2/3 yards of the guests. So far all we have arranged is a venue, and it's a good thing we did, too, because there's only 3 venues in the area and November 2021 was the earliest date any of them had available. Rosie and Mick got engaged last week. Rosie has looked for venues and the first available date is April 2022. Mum and Dad told us today that we will now be having a double wedding. Everyone involved is aware of the issues we have with Mick. He refused to share the wedding. My parents then they were paying for 2/3 yards of it, so they should have final say. I responded that they don't get a say on who is getting married. They said I was being immature and should learn to share the spotlight, and I said that my issue was seeing Mick standing next to my fiancé at the altar. My parents tried to young lady me, I'm nearly 28, saying that Rosie can't get anything in the next 18 months and it wasn't fair to make her wait that long. Plus if they're paying for well over half the wedding and won't be interfering on anything else, we should allow this. I then said that we would pay for the entire wedding ourselves, and go back to our original guest list minus my parents, Mick and Rosie, then hung up. I definitely just snapped in the moment, but the idea of sharing my wedding with Mick gives me a visceral negative reaction. Since hanging up, my fiancé says that he's fine with this development, though he wasn't expecting it, but he supports me. However, my parents and sister feel I overreacted and called me an ass for uninviting them over them having one thing they wanted at the wedding they're paying for. I felt pretty confident in my choice, but then my brother, who hates Mick as much as we do, said I needed to calm the fuck down and that the logical response here would have been to return my parents' money and remove their guests, not to uninvite my parents from my wedding entirely, and said unless I fix it, I'd be going full bridezilla. AITA, edit, to be clear, I am 100% returning the money. The idea of the money was that we add my parents' guests, which is no longer happening, so I'll be returning their money. NTA. Even if you liked them, being told to share your wedding is pretty atrocious. Add in the fact that you don't get along, and it's a recipe for disaster. We waited 3 years for our wedding due to scheduling issues, and it turned out to be a fantastic idea, waiting that long, because we were able to have the mostest wedding possible and didn't feel stressed at all. I guess my point there being that if it's something you're doing for forever, waiting a year or 2 doesn't seem so terrible as to take over someone else's wedding. Is there a possibility of an outdoor location or something they might use? They don't want outdoor wedding, but we did consider one, or like an indoor/outdoor situation. We weren't exactly in a rush to get married, so I've actually got half a mind to just give her the venue and we hold off for a while. NTA. It's actually frankly irrelevant that you despise Mick. Why would parents force their daughters to share a wedding? Even on the surface that's preposterous. Mick Jagger just makes it worse. Just because they're paying 2/3 of the cost they get to dictate such an outrageous request. A 20-person wedding can't be that expensive. Tell them to take their contribution and shove it. NTA. This is your wedding. You might wanna downsize it so you can hand your parents their money back and say F you. Your sister can wait a year or pick a different venue. Or organize a reception in your backyard if you have one. Your parents are incredibly entitled here, as is your sister. fucking NTA for the official ruling. They told you, a grown-ass woman, that you have to share a wedding? Hell no. I agree with you declining their money and their guests. Good for you for standing up to them. Also, please call your venue, and any vendors you book, and set up a password for making any changes to the event. AITA for not telling husband's family I'm pregnant. Update: 2 days ago, DH posted the ultrasound photos in the group. He explained it was a planned pregnancy and that I had miscarriages. His mom replied with a smiley face sticker, and the sister who scolded him replied. His brother and other sister read it and said nothing. It's been silent since then. My husband, 36M, and I, 34F, are expecting our first baby. We each have a son from previous marriages. My husband is the black sheep of the family, 2 sisters, brother, mother. His family has a FB messaging group that they talk on constantly, but every time he contributes to the conversation, they stop talking for a couple days, no exaggeration. This is one of the reasons he didn't bother telling his family that I'm pregnant. The other reason is that I had 2 miscarriages back to back and he didn't want to jinx anything. I had respected that he hadn't told his family and refrained from posting anything on FB. I got my anatomy scan at 20 weeks and found out it's a girl. I asked him when he would tell his family because I wanted to post on FB, and he told me to just go ahead and post because if they wanted to know what was going on in his life, then they would talk to him. I went ahead and posted on FB that it was a girl. A couple days later, his sister messaged him saying that he needed to call his mom. She hadn't called him in 6 months. He always calls her. He ended up calling her, at which point she accused us of getting married because I'm pregnant, and told him he needs to clear this up with his siblings. Not one of them has said congrats on the pregnancy. His sister literally reached out to him to scold him, and no one else has said a word to him. I don't personally feel that we owe anyone an explanation for anything. It's not their business about my miscarriages. Anyway, I can understand why my husband didn't want to tell them, but a waiter? NTA. Also, I would seriously consider blocking his family on Facebook, or at the very least adjusting your privacy settings so they can't see your posts. NTA, and seriously get your DH to realize that he gave in to his sister. She said call and so he did. He is a grown adult, he doesn't need to fall in line. If they were interested in his life they would reach out. Time to drop the rope with all of them. NTA, ignore them, you don't have to explain or justify anything to them. NTA, I would consider cutting off that side of the family altogether for both of your emotional well-being. You're both in your 30s. This isn't a 19-year-old having a shotgun wedding because they're pregnant. This is 2 adults who love each other, who are settled in life, who already have children. Edit, telephones work 2 ways. I'd care if they knew that or not.